Okay, my name is James Kabindu, and I'm a dad to children who live with disabilities. They have a condition called phenylketonuria, or PKU in short. A condition that the physical characteristics, if you look at them, in one way or the other, you think it is autism. And for about 10 years, we've been managing actually autism, even the cards that I have, and the registration that is done in the government bodies, the cards bears the words autism and physical disabilities. And that's what we've been managing. But after some time, we did different diagnosis, and we did a different test in India. And now this is the time this new diagnosis was given, the one of phenylketonuria. These children, the first one is a boy. At the moment, he's 18 years, and the girl is turning 14 now. They were born quite okay, and one was born in a normal way. The other one was born through elective CS, and both of them, were quite okay, as I've said, until the time they were approaching year 1. That is when now we started noticing these common ailments like fever, some respiratory distress, where we could be told this is pneumonia and all that. Then along the way, the kids started, both of them started regressing in their developmental milestones. A kid that was sitting down stopped sitting and or standing, or maybe walking, holding onto things. We noticed that they started becoming withdrawn and all that. Then their skin pigmentation and all that, and at some point we thought it's jaundice and all that. We've been in and out of hospitals until a time when now you are told we need to go and check advice from these disability bodies. And that's what we have done. We have managed this condition for George from the time he was year 1. The girl, Angel, as well, from the time she was year 1. They got assessed, and we were told they have autism. But we have managed it and found for about 10 years, that is for the boy, nothing was changing much. We've taken him even to special schools, which were very costly. Still nothing was changing. There is one thing that was standing out, this issue of convulsions, the issue of skin pigmentation, the issue of irritation, crying all the time. We decided to get a second opinion. We tried to pool resources. We took them to India. And when we took them to India, thorough diagnosis was done, and a verdict was reached that they have a condition called PKU. Now, this is one condition that comes about as a result of body's inability to metabolize or to properly utilize amino acids or some parts of proteins. And we were told this is something that could be managed right from the child is born, and the child necessarily does not need to get disabilities. It is something that's just like someone who has diabetes. You are told right from the beginning, this is what you need to avoid. And once you do this, you lead your normal life. As long as, like in our case, in our particular case, we would have been told to avoid proteins. And once we were told to avoid proteins, we would have been told to take supplements in their place. Even breastfeeding, they would not have breastfed. But because we did not have this information, we continued doing this. And just like in autism management, we continued with, we only removed the gluten and some things that we are told in autism we remove, but we are still retaining the entire, all the proteins. And I have told you the only offensive element in this protein in their body is this thing we are calling phenylalanine. Because this condition, as I've told you, if you consume proteins, you consume the protein. Now the body releases a chemical called phenylalanine hydroxylase. Now the metabolism gets complete. But in their case, due to one reason or the other, and actually in their particular case, it's a genetic issue. Their body does not release now this chemical. So what happens is that once they have consumed this chemical and the body removes it from the food, it is left floating in the blood. And when it is left floating in the blood, and the blood continues pumping it, at some point when it gets into the brain or some nerves, and it's not eliminated from the body, it becomes toxic. Once it becomes toxic, that is the time now you'll see the child will start having fevers, because there's something foreign now in the body, something toxic. You start having fevers. If it's still not controlled, you start having convulsions. And if it's still not controlled, that's now the point now we have now intellectual impairment, because the brain is being damaged over time. Now, it has been a journey. And one thing that I always like capturing is that I've told you there's a way we were told that this could be avoided. I can show you documentaries of children who have PKU. And when I'm talking about PKU, I'm talking about just one of many other disorders that come about as a result of maybe body's inability to metabolize some foods. So in this particular case of PKU, I like talking about it because it's something that could be avoided. In developed countries, what happens is that there's something called newborn screening. Now, with the newborn screening, and this is what could have happened with our children, unfortunately it's not here in our country. We would have, a blood would have been taken from their body. In most cases, taken from the heel. A sample is taken to the lab, and within 72 hours or a day or two, you are told that your child is quite okay. He could be okay for 1 month, 2 months, or even a year. But along the way, he will develop a certain problem. In our case, we would have been told your child is likely to have disability as a result of PKU. And this is normally known through newborn screening. Now, in our country, we do not have such a thing. You can imagine now the number of children who are having conditions like ours. It may not be PKU, because if you go and do research, you'll find there are so many diseases and disorders that are almost similar to PKU, or others that could be captured and caught at that early stage, and a child leads a normal life. And I'm drawing a parallel between PKU and this diabetes, where I'm telling you, if you know you are a diabetic, there is a way you can lead your normal life, as long as you know you avoid this, you eat this, etc. So in our case, what is the main thing that is lacking is information about this newborn screening. Unfortunately, with our case, when we went to India, we were told that once a child gets through the stage of 1 month, 2 months, or maybe a year, without this screening or without you knowing what you need to avoid, and as I've told you, these toxic elements are still building up in the body because you are still pumping the child with proteins. What happens is that now, with the damage to the brain, at some point it's almost irreversible. Although you'll be told you go and start doing a lot of therapies, you are told now this is a lifelong condition. Depending on the time that the child has taken, it's the same way the severity of the condition will be. Like if you look at my 2 children, you'll notice George is more severe than the girl, because George now is 18 years. By the time we were taking him to India, he was 16. The girl was about 10, 11 when we were taking them to India. So the boy has taken a bit long, and so his damage is more than the girl. And we were told from that point onwards, it's only management. One reason why I like talking to people is, you want to tell, number 2, you want to address society to know a number of things. Number 1, not all cases that look like autism are autism. And number 2, there are disabilities which could be avoided. And even if it is just one, we need to avoid it, because the moment you do not avoid it, consequences are too grave. Like in my cases, you find everything turned upside down. I stopped working. My wife stopped working. We found ourselves at home taking care of the children. In another situation whereby, as I've told you, if you look at some documentaries of people with PKU in developed countries, and it is managed well, they lead their normal life. You see some are professors carrying on their stuff. So when I look, anytime I look at my son, I see maybe a deficiency or a failure in our system, in Africa and here in Kenya in particular. I compare with someone I'm seeing out there with similar condition, leading a normal life, and him here, and the only difference is because they knew about it some time back. They have put technologies or resources in place, unlike us here who do not know about this, and we have not put resources or infrastructure in place. And I do not know, maybe we are how many of us, and that's why I like talking very much about their condition, so that I can challenge even the policy makers. Because something like newborn screening, I have worked a lot with people within the disability field, and I have seen there are so many disabilities, particularly in those intellectual in nature. Newborn screening, I like telling people that it encompasses basically 3 things. One of them is that no child is supposed to leave the maternity without a hearing and screening test, a very simple test. There is another screening that actually uses something very simple called pulse oximeter. Now that one again checks these congenital heart diseases. It is not happening. As a result, you've seen so many children going for open heart surgeries and all that. Or some of them you do not know until some time later in life when complications arise and you hear people are doing fundraising for this and that, and in most cases, or in some cases, you lose even the child. The third test now is this blood screening test. The one that would have captured now the case of my children and would not be where we are today. So we like challenging not just the society but our policy makers to know there's something out there that need to be checked. One way we were told the way of managing these conditions, in particular PKU, it's managed mainly through diet. As I've talked about, I said it's a metabolic disorder. So the first line of management is through diet. The other one is you have to introduce now this new supplement, because you have to almost remove all the proteins. Now in its place you introduce the protein. Now the only problem we have is that I have said this condition is not known locally, so even these products are not here. Now in our case we are forced to source from outside, very expensive. To get just one tin is about 4,000, and again even to get it here it's a huge issue, because we normally rely either on well-wisher who is coming to deliver it to us. Alternatively, we use the couriers. Now, if you use the couriers, like during the time of COVID, when planes were off the skies, it was so hectic because something like, I remember a well-wisher who bought for us, about 3 tins for about 15,000. But for it to reach us here in Nairobi, we spent about 30,000, actually over 30,000, whereby about 10,000 was going to tax. The courier was charging around 20,000 there to bring the 3 tins from United States to us here. It was complicated. Along the way, we are still trying to look for ways where we can maybe be able to bring down the cost, but it's hectic because the product is not here. I've talked now that is the second line of management, which is formula. I told you these kids, they had some neurological issues because of the extensive brain damage done over time. So for that case, there are 3 types of medications that they use. Actually, the boy uses 3 types of medications daily. One tablet costs around between 75 and 80 shillings, one tablet. And in a day, he's supposed to take 2. One in the morning, one in the evening. There is another tablet that also complements that one, or goes hand with that one. It costs around between 40 and 50 shillings. One in the morning, one in the evening. Okay, there's another one that controls the moods, like when they are sometimes moody and all that. The girl takes one tablet in the morning, one tablet in the evening, each costing 75. So you'll see one is using around 150 per day, the other one is using almost 300 in a day or more. This is hectic. If you add it to the other one I told you of 4,000, this becomes quite problematic. And now you add the special diet. Besides that, they also want therapies. And besides therapies, still even at their ages, they are dependent on most aspects of daily living. Something like diapers and all that, issues around their sanitation, again, which is very costly. And that's why I'm saying if there's something that could be done to be able to, arrest this right at the beginning, the better. It is quite challenging because, again, for you to be able to take care of these children, initially when the girl was, had not joined that club, I was working. My wife is the only one who had quit to take care of the boy. But it reached a point whereby we found ourselves at home, both of us, because we found out this issue cannot be handled by ourselves. They'll come today, within the next day they are gone. No one wants to stay with them. So I told my wife, at the end of the day, money is not important. What is important is what is placed, God has placed, in our hands. And we believed in one way or the other. If He has placed something in your hands and you just be obedient, He's going to provide for you. So that's how my wife quit her business. I quit my job, and we found ourselves at home. And at home, first of all, we had a number of issues. It reached a point where actually we are going even without the medication, therapies and all that, sometimes even food. But I thank God because along the way we found ourselves doing something meaningful. Like today we have this project that we started of chicken, ornamental birds and all that, and that is the one that has been sustaining us. And by keeping us busy and working on this project, we are able to get something that is sustaining us. Number two, that is getting us medication for the kids. And at the same time, it's like therapy for us, even for the kids. And in one way or the other, God is good because we have found it growing slowly by slowly, and we are managing it. There's something I've discovered along this journey, particularly of severe disabilities. It is quite challenging, and one unique thing about it is that, like in our case, we say we are Africans. It's full of challenges, issues around culture. We were like interpretations. Anytime you have a challenge that is of magnitude, like in our case, society comes in, or people around you comes in and starts interpreting in different ways. My wife and I have found it very rough because we've always wanted to look at it from a scientific angle. But man is a social animal. There are some areas we could not avoid because pressure was too much. We were told to look at society issues, spiritual issues, and nobody actually wanted to hear about science that much because they were asking maybe one child could be acceptable, but the second, society is not used to some of these things, and it's understandable in our African culture. So out of that pressure, a lot of things did not go very well, and I normally speak for those people who maybe cannot be able to speak for themselves, because I have found a number of families like ours going under because of this. You find yourself even addressing a problem in the wrong way, and sometimes you disappear. It takes you down as well. And that is why I like talking to society, and I like telling people, whenever you hear a certain home has certain case or certain cases, do not just take it lightly. It's good to go deeper. Like I'm going deeper, we went deeper and discovered this is not just autism, it's another case, that this is how it could be managed. I like society to take more, a different approach into the way we look at disability issues, particularly this one of intellectual in nature. Because I actually call them severe and profound disabilities. A person like my son who requires an adult 24/7. Now you'll notice that a case like ours, if it's a mother who is working, has to stop. She has to stop working. If it's a dad who was working, the dad has to stop working, or one of them, or maybe both of them. Now, if both of them are not working, they're still human beings. And actually their budget is almost 3 times or more, or many times more than the typical child or typical family. I'd like the society to start looking at this issue differently, because we have experienced it firsthand, whereby you've seen you lack medication, and sometimes even this medication is so critical, because like anticonvulsant medication, if you start it, you are not supposed to miss even a single dose. Otherwise, if you miss just a single dose, now the next time these seizures comes, they come in a so heavy way, and they take a toll on you, even more than they were before. So whether you have money, you do not have money, you have to take this medication. We are still talking about parent who is out of job. Okay, so it's a catch-22. It's so hard for them. So the society needs to understand these families deeper. I have seen in the media cases whereby you see a child is tied at home. Okay, now many people take offense, whereby I do not advocate for that. I always ask the society, if it, why did the mother tie the child at home? Maybe because she wants to go and fetch the water from the river. Suppose the neighbors there who forms the society went there and gave her this water. You fetch the water for her. Maybe they went for some kibaruas out there to get some money. Suppose one person went with a packet of unga to that family. They would stay with their child at home. But because all these are not there, that is why you see some of these. And I've said again, I'm not excusing it. But I normally, because I've been there, I know some of the reasons. Some of even these cases, if you leave them like my girl here, just the other day she got lost. And it was her for us here in Nairobi to start looking for her. It's happening. You have noticed the issue about children disappearance. So sometimes if you leave them, they disappear, and now it becomes another mess. So I would like the society to start looking at this in a different way. And to our policymakers, we need a lot of, particular disability to be looked more seriously and in a keener way. Because I like looking at disability. You know, there's the issue of you look at intellectual disability. There's a lot of discrimination even within that field. The government waives tax on disability issues, but in this case, because it's my children, I cannot enjoy that as a caregiver or a parent. They want someone like George. If he's importing a car, or if he's employed, they can waive the tax, pay and all that. But the caregiver does not enjoy those benefits. Unlike someone who is maybe on a wheelchair or has a physical disability, that one can benefit. But if you look keenly, someone like George is the one who has more severe disability. He's the one who needs these services more. And he's the one actually who has made our lives be grounded so that we can be with him 24/7. So there's that policy issue that needs to be looked at. And the other issue is like what I'm talking about here. Looking at how you can prevent these disabilities by way of, like I'm talking about, introduction of newborn screening in our country. Now this will go a long way, because you not even talk about disability, you cut it from the base. One thing I normally tell parents is that the moment you find ourselves in a situation like ours, one thing you need to do, and it will help you a lot and help the children, is accepting the situation, like we did in the case of our children. I have met a lot of parents, and I have been in I've seen some sad scenarios whereby either one parent walks away, particularly dads. I want to challenge dads here. one parent walks away and the child is left with just one parent, or the child is taken to the grandparents. And now you see, now managing these cases for a grandmother is so difficult. So I want to tell the parents, particularly the young parents, and it happens particularly to first timers. If it is your first kid and you happen to find that they have a disability, please accept them. God knows the reason why He's giving these children to you. It's not a burden. In most cases, actually, it's a blessing. And if you view it from that point, it becomes easy for you. It becomes easy for the children. It becomes even easy for society. So this is my plea. If you have a child with special needs, please take it as a gift from God and a blessing.